Hello everybody, welcome to the first episode of the unofficial Dead by Daylight community podcast. I'm your host, Knifebird from the Dead by Daylight community Discord. With me today I have OhTofu, Flare2V, Taco, and Metro.
Hi.
Hello.
Great.
Yo.
Hey.
Right, we're gonna go straight into the first topic. Yesterday on the dev stream, we saw some perk balance change leaks. They were talking about some of the perks that were going to be buffed/nerfed. I think the one perk that has gotten the most controversy about this is probably self-care. For anyone that doesn't know, the changes to self-care are going to be that the item efficiency of medkits that is currently from ranks 1 to 3, 50, 75, 100% is going to be changed to 1, I think 1, 5, and 25%, correct me if I'm wrong on this. But yeah. So what are we thinking about that one?
So who wants to start?
I can start. I think it was kind of a change that's been needed for a long time. 100% extra durability to medkits. It was kind of a problem. Normally, self-care consumes, a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to heal yourself up. So it's not all that much better than just finding a teammate. And a lot of the times, you'll find yourself in a situation where you heal up, and then the killer interrupts your heal, and you don't get to finish that heal, and all that time was wasted. But the durability increase, being able to use medkits twice as long, kind of completely rectifies that problem. So I'm glad to see the durability get nerfed on that. I'd like to see it make a return with botany or another perk, but putting it on self-care was too much for what it was.
I think botany should be buffed if they're gonna nerf self-care in that way, honestly.
I think the change is fine. Like I didn't see a problem with like self-care in general, but it was just like must-have perk. Like especially when you're solo. Like I run self-care like every fucking game when I play Survivor. Just because if you can't rely on your teammates, it's like I don't know. I'm like torn about it. I will miss my old self-care, but I think the change is fine. I don't think it was the main issue. Like it's not a major issue in balance, in my opinion. It's not what makes the game broken for either side.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not like priority kind of deal, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't think the nerf is really that big of a deal anyway. I don't think a lot of people ran medkits with self-care. I think most people just ran self-care.
That's how I ran it. I know a lot of people just ran self-care, but whenever I ran self-care, I'd run it with a medkit so I could heal up quickly.
I mean, when I use medkits, I use self-care like pretty much in every build because clutch perks or whatever they're called, and so and I mean, honest, I don't think it's that much of a deal. Like you still get the self-care speed, so medkits, you'll just bring like flashlights or toolboxes, it'll be worse for the killer then.
Yeah, exactly. That's like also my opinion about the whole thing, because I think the nerf is a good idea, because that's the same thing I do. I bring a green medkit with, I think, gel dressings and something that increases the healing speed, and with self-care I can get up to 5 heals out of that. I think that is insane.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous.
It's not even like the best medkit in the game. Like imagine if I brought a ranger's medkit with that. That is just crazy. And I also think it might actually be, to survivors in general, maybe a slight buff, because now people might be more enticed into bringing stuff like flashlights or toolboxes or, whatever other items, instead of medkits when they're using self-care.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think like the medkit build wasn't like the strongest. Like I think a flashlight is always better than a medkit. Well, you can't really say always better, but I think you can buy like a ton of time with a flashlight.
After the flashlight changes, they're definitely not as reliable for chain blinds or.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
But they're still really potent on breaking line of sight after.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're still like fine.
Another thing I was wondering about it though, they're changing it so that the perks that affect skill checks don't affect self-care anymore, which is what this is not happening, I think, which is something that nobody uses. I feel like they're going to be buffing that perk a lot then, right? Like, I'm
Yeah,
assuming that the new
definitely.
this is not happening would be OP with self-care, so I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to be. I'm assuming that's the only reason they would make that change, is if that would be an OP combo in the future.
I guess. Also, like, since we're already talking about other perks getting changed, the killer perks are also being changed. Some of those perks are Enduring, Agitation, and Unnerving Presence. Since we're talking about skill check perks right now, I'm really excited to see what they're doing with Unnerving Presence. I'm personally hoping they're making so when you're in the killer's terror radius, all your skill checks are hex skill checks. That's what I want to see. I think that'd be really cool.
I mean, yeah. What would it do? Like, just like the greatest be like the
So
like
hex skill.
That's it, or
hex skill checks are when you don't hit a great skill check and only hit a good skill check, you don't get anything and you get set back 5%. And and if you hit a great skill check, you don't get any regression, but you also don't get any degression.
So are you saying like built-in ruin through heartbeat, or what are you offering? Like,
actually, that is kind of broken. I think I'm gonna take that one back.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was just thinking, like, you run that with statement. Ruin, you know, and you just run around with the stressing.
My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Oh my god.
But like, sorry, you go.
Alright. I'm not a big fan of perks that lengthen game time artificially like that. You know, Thanasophobia, stuff that slows down generator repair speed, skill check shit. It can be kind of interesting when it plays in with the terror radius, but when it's just like a totem that slows you down, I don't think it necessarily creates for more fun or interactive gameplay. I think it's just another skill check you gotta hit at the end of the day.
Then again, if they just up the numbers on Unnerving Presence, it's still gonna be helping the survivors more than the killers, because good survivors are always gonna hit at least a good skill check, and that's more regression.
That could change though, you know? There's a lot of creative things they could do with skill checks that would make it so you can't reliably hit them anymore. Imagine if Unnerving Presence made it so that you couldn't react to skill checks properly.
What if they made it so Unnerving Presence actually gives doctor skill checks in the terror radius? You know, the ones that like go all about the screen.
I think those are like, it's not hard to hit them. It's kind of annoying for streamers because we chat a lot. Like, but like if you pay attention to the screen, I don't think it makes it particularly harder. Like, I don't want to bring like examples from F13, but I think like the whole skill check thing, I think everyone's annoyed by now, right? Like, everyone knows doing gens is fucking boring now. So like, maybe they update the whole, like if they would update the whole like skill check system to make it like kind of like F13, like something a bit more not challenging. I wouldn't even say it's challenging, like just something different. Yeah, something that
engages you more other than
more interactive. Exactly. I think that would be like a really good change, I think, for the game overall.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than holding M1 at a generator for 80 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's pretty awful.
Especially because like the generator time got increased. You know, like we've been playing the game for over a year now, and like I think it was like 40 or 45 at the start. Then it turned to like 50, 60, 65, 70, and we're at like 1 million.
Yeah.
The same reason I dislike all the perks that make it take longer to work generators. Instead of holding M1 for 80 seconds, it's going to be 90 or more.
Let's talk about Ruin.
Ruin.
The thing is, like, Ruin is like it's such a must-have perk almost now, because it like either like almost in 90% of the games it buys like so much time, and it's just like it feels so bad to play against, you know, like as killer you don't really notice it, but like the game as survivor, like there should be like especially on the killer side, I feel like on survivors they added like more interesting perks, right, with like Dead Hard now, and like I think it gets more versatile. But on killer you're still really limited. Like if you think about like what kind of perks you want to run on killers, like other than like nurse, right? You're forced into brute strength. A lot of people like run enduring, and then what? What do you have?
You've got a very small handful of perks. You've got like 1 or 2 that most people would consider mandatory, and then you've got a handful that you can swap between.
Yeah.
There's like 10 viable perks in the game for killer.
I also think one of the problems with killer perks compared to survivor perks are that survivor perks are a lot more interactive and engaging than killer perks. Because if you look at it, you have the top 2 killer perks I think that most killers use are Enduring and Brutal Strength, and those are just straight stat boost perks. They just straight up increase your stats as a killer. And then you have perks like Dead Hard, which is super fun to use, it's super interactive, it's activatable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's also, I think, part of the problem why killer is kind of... Some people think killer is boring compared to survivor. I mean, speaking of Enduring, I really want to know what they are going to Enduring, because I think that perk doesn't need a buff.
Yeah, I was kind of curious myself. That's already one of the best perks in the game. I don't know what they're doing.
I think one thing I could imagine is maybe them reducing the time you get stunned when the survivor wiggles out to like indirectly actually just so just the stun is shorter when you wiggle out, which I think is unnecessary.
One thing that I'd like to point out is that perhaps the tier 3 perk isn't getting buffed. With all the perk buffs, if they don't specify what it is, there's kind of old generation and new generation perks, where the new generation perks have really good scaling. Like Nurse's Calling starts off potent, it has an effect, and then as you level it up, it gets a little bit better and a little bit better. Versus perks like Enduring, where they start out 25%. That's not going to do dick for you. So maybe instead of 25%, 50%, 75%, this linear, harsh scaling, where it's only really all that effective at tier 2 or 3, maybe it starts off at like 50%, and then 62%, and then 75%.
I honestly think that, since we're speaking about like ranks and all, I think one way to reduce the grind, which is also a thing people complain about, is to just remove the whole perks need to have tier, like 3 ranks thing. I think that's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I think that's just what he's talking about. I mean, if Enduring tier 1 was 50%, that would be actually usable.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a problem anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Enduring 1 right now is completely useless. There's no point running it.
True.
I mean, to be fair though,
same
like
goes for Whispers 1. Like, why would you ever run Whispers 1?
To be fair, they're kind of reducing the grind though, right? Like, we're getting a lot more blood points now, which is really cool. Like, you actually feel inclined to do like dailies now. Like, before you got like no fucking points at all.
It's like you still have to spend those blood points, and spending blood points is still tedious.
Yeah. Well, that's something they could do without, reducing the grind, so to speak.
I mean, I actually have gotten a confirmation from Bucket Behavior on Reddit that they are working on something to increase the blood web animation speed.
Oh yeah, no, I'm surprised they haven't done it already. It needs to happen. It's a pretty basic quality of life change that hasn't happened yet.
Especially for the people who get reset, they have to sit there for hours. Like, they can't even play the game. They have to just click blood points the entire time.
I remember when I was compensated, I got 36 million blood points. That took me 12 hours to spend. Maybe I spend blood points a little slower, maybe I don't do it as efficiently, but like, come on, that is still so long.
Yeah, it's a joke. I think there are a few things we should watch out, though, if we're going to be reducing the grind. I'm sure a lot of you felt this during the triple blood point event, but iridescent heads being everywhere.
Oh yeah, dude.
If you up the rate at which people get blood points, you're gonna up the rate at which they're getting items from the blood web. So you're gonna see a lot more syringes, a lot more styptic agents, brand new parts. They're not as strong as they used to be, but they're still really, really damn strong. Stuff like that, you're still gonna be seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about balance, right, it's really hard to balance these things. Like, there's always going to be stuff in the game that makes you like have an unfair advantage. Like, iridescent head is like the worst of them all, I think. Now it's like really, really fucking strong. But I don't know. Maybe there should be a game mode where you can't use add-ons, like something.
I honestly think. Yeah. Sorry, I honestly think that it would be okay if they were actually ultra rare.
Yes,
I mean,
I was going to say.
Yeah,
I've gotten comments.
I don't think iridescent heads themselves are broken. I think they're actually fine. It's just the fact that like for example, during the triple blood point weekend, I got my Huntress to prestige 350, And like just from level 1 to 50, I think I have about 40 iridescent heads. That is just
It's almost one per
dumb.
level.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
okay, I see where you're coming from, but I want to raise the counterpoint where even if they're ultra rare, are they ever going to be fun to play against?
Yeah, I
think
it's
the
like,
answer to that is no. Yeah.
yeah, it's like
Mm.
probably
Old
the
Moris.
worst. Like it's not worse than an Ebony Mori. There's not much stuff that's worse in terms of add-ons. Like
Yeah, I
okay, let alone the okay. I mean, like we have the 5 Blink Nurse or like the 3 or 4 Blink Nurse, but other than that, I don't know.
I feel like I don't even understand why things like Mori's brand new parts, like these really overpowered add-ons that you're gonna use when you're like, man, whoever these next 4 steroids I'm playing against, fuck them. Like that's when you use a Mori, that's when you use an iridescent head. I don't know why that's in the game. That serves no purpose other than to be unfun to play against. I think that's my opinion about that.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's I don't think ultra rare items. I don't think all of these one-time use items are allowed to be strong just because they're one-time use.
I'd rather see Moris be implemented into somehow of a mechanic. Like, imagine this, where you get maybe custom Mori animations, and then you have a survivor that's on death hook. When you reach a hook, you get the option to maybe press mouse 2, and instead of hooking them, you execute them, and then you play the Mori animation. That's what I'd like to see. I
can kind of get that. In my opinion, I don't think Moris were ever too much of a problem within themselves. Like, I'd rather be Mori'd than put on a hook and then camp to death, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world to just move on to the next game. I think it was always the killers that can use Moris. Like, if I get Mori'd by a nurse, that sucks because there's really not much I can do to avoid being hit by the nurse in the first place, and then I'm dead.
Yeah, you're out the game based on like something small.
Kind of situations like that. Or iridescent head, you know? I'm trying to play my way around the Huntress, but she turns what would normally be one hit into a down and then a death.
I think if they still want to like nerf iridescent heads, I think a good way to go about it would be that the head's only one hit when you fully charge the axe.
That would still suck though. It would still be awful to play against.
Yeah, but
I think iridescent heads need to be dicked on to the point where like they're only really useful in incredibly niche circumstances. So like if you hit someone at 50 meters with a hatchet, that's when they go down.
Can we talk about like the biggest problem in DBD right now?
Sure. What do you think?
The nurse. Why
I mean,
laughing?
I hate the nurse for sure.
The nurse is a serious issue. Okay, no laughing, please.
Nice.
She is.
I've played a lot of
years. Like the nurse has been in the game for like a year now, right?
She
like
was
almost
the first
a year.
killer, like
after
release,
and he's still not fixed. Like
she's still buggy. She's still incredibly broken.
Yeah, they fixed the doctor, which is fine, right? I agree with that, but I feel like they should have addressed the nurse ages ago. And I don't know if any of the devs are listening, but like I like a few dev streams back, they talked about like balance, right? And they put up this spreadsheet where they were like, well, the nurse has like the lowest win rate overall, you know, the lowest kill rate.
That's
like you can't really take that, right? You have to balance every game around like the highest level of skill if you want it to be like half competitive, right? And
yeah, exactly.
If DBD wants to be a half competitive game, I'm not saying it will ever be like super esports. You got to balance around like higher level, and if they look at like high level like kills, I'm pretty sure Nurse has like the most.
Yeah, Nurse is definitely up there in rank 1.
I've never seen it in a dev stream before. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it was it was they said they wanted to buff her add-ons, like because they were so scared that they were gonna make an overpowered killer that they released her add-ons with a lot of negatives, and they said they wanted to like past like near recently, you know, like the same add-ons we've had. They said they wanted to buff them, and I don't really I don't think they understand how good Nurse can be. I guess I mean.
Well, I think that the whole thing about add-ons is for a killer like Nurse, like comparable to a killer like Trapper. What can you really do with add-ons other than make add-ons that increase the power strength? I personally think that add-ons, at least in the rarities, like rare and ultra rare, should be more focused around altering the playstyle.
Yeah, the thing with the nurses, right? Like, it's kind of flawed. Like, the system is flawed as a whole, just because most players won't use extra add-ons because they like change the way she works. I talked about that once. I think the best idea I had so far is like actually reduce the lunge range. I think 2 blinks are fine as long as she doesn't have auto aim. I mean, auto aim shouldn't be in the game in the first place. And then make it so maybe the lunge range is longer on some of the add-ons. Like, I think the add-ons of the nurse are like one of the main problems, right? There's like 3 or 4 which are really strong, but like 2 at least, like the extra blinks. And then there's add-ons you almost never want to use.
There's the pocket watch, which reduces the stun time.
Yeah, exactly. The pocket watch and then the extra blinks, which should, like, the extra blinks should not be in the game. We can all agree.
No, no, they really should.
Yeah.
Add-ons being power up and power down kind of things. Yeah, I don't think that's how add-ons should function at all. Like, if you've got a killer with an add-on, typically that add-on is just going to increase the effectiveness of their power and not necessarily modify how it works.
Yes. Exactly.
I've played a lot of nurse, right? Like, there's a way you can check like some statistics, and like right now I think I have 3,500 blink hits as nurse. Like, I used to play just too much nurse. Like, I don't know, I played it just a lot in solo, and the only add-ons I really ever found useful were the pocket watch, the like the tooth that increases its charge speed, and then the range add-ons, which were my favorite because they say they decrease accuracy, but I don't think that's even a thing. Like, there's no accuracy.
How do you actually decrease the accuracy of a blink? I don't.
It's so I would just put on like
implementing
green offerings, just fly across the map with like no downside, and it was pretty overpowered.
Yeah. I think if you take, like, for an example, Myers, like, his add-ons are done right. Like, they're fun. Like no add-on is overpowered, right? Like, even the purple, like even the pink ones aren't like too strong, but they change up the play style and still make him fun to play, right?
I mean, Myers with Tough Affair and Tombstone is still like the worst thing you can do to yourself, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even good, right? But it's fun, and that's like that should be the point.
That's worse than playing Hag.
Oh yeah, the Hag.
Well, I don't actually think Hag is bad or like even.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know.
Hag is pretty bad.
You think?
Playing against Hag is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in the game.
I think like, playing against the Hag and the Hag's playstyle and the playstyle she encourages is complete garbage, but I don't think Hag is like unviable. Everyone always like memes, oh man, Hag worst killer.
Oh yeah, no, she's not really unviable, because if someone steps on your trap and they're not 2 inches from a window or a pallet, they're gonna get hit.
Yeah. Exactly. So
she's definitely viable. Easy to bully if you don't know what you're doing with her, right?
But I think like the best playstyle I think that doesn't really heavily involve camping is you just find 3 generators that are really close, let them do all average generators, just defend that area, and then you just go ham.
But that leads to like an hour-long match, and
I know.
I mean, if you really want to win,
that's what I mean by the playstyles she encourages are like just awful.
Yeah, I would play against the nurse 100 times before I played against the Hag. Honestly,
what?
I hate him. I'm not even joking.
I don't know about that,
joking.
Nah, it depends on the Hag, dude. Like, that's what I'm saying, though, right? Like, most Hags I face are pretty bad. It's like, they place like 1 or 2 traps, and then they try to chase you like a normal killer, and then you just win. But then there's the 5% of Hags that place like traps behind the hook, because that's still a thing. They can't, like, they should just increase the radius around the hook by like 5 meters, right?
Agreed.
Like, why the fuck can you not like just increase the radius so she can't place traps anymore? And then there's like the 5% good Hags. Like, sometimes I die because like they spend a bit of time placing a few traps on like really good spots. You can place like 10 really fast with the right add-ons, and then you actually die in chases. You know, it's not necessarily the most fun to play against, but I think the Hag is strong when she's played properly.
Yeah, for sure. But like 95% of Hag games is just them eventually catching a survivor with like Bloodlust 3 and then putting them on the hook and placing 10 traps around their body and then never leaving. You can't even crouch walk in because they never leave the area.
Yeah, but the thing is that's not an issue about the design of the killer, in my opinion. You know, like, I think that's an issue about the players.
Yeah.
It's kind of an issue, right?
Well,
and, like,
I'm gonna just stay straight ahead that I think there's no fix to camping I think camping will always be a thing. They can prevent face camping, but like patrolling, I think they should just embrace the fact that it will always be a thing. That is a playstyle. I think a lot of survivors don't think that's okay. I think it's okay when killers patrol. You can just do gens, you can do something else, but it's still not fun to play against. But there's just not gonna be a fix for stuff like patrolling.
Is this our segue into camping?
Camping?
I mean, I definitely want to mention that just as a final note for the hag, her kit right now is similar to the nurses in where the survivor can be running in a chase, make no inherent mistakes in how they run the chase, but if they step on a trap, they're going to take a hit.
Yeah.
And I think that's why she's not fun to play against, especially with how fast she can lay them in an area. So you're going to be taking hits. It's disorienting. And it's generally, after that, once someone's hooked, it's not fun to play again. So that I think, whether or not they want to, I think they need to embrace the delay before being able to hit after teleporting. I think that the trap should be used for area denial or tracking, as opposed to getting free hits when someone steps on your trap. And I think that her movement speed could use a buff or any other.
Yeah. All right.
If you guys have any other ideas, then.
Because if you don't, I would like to try to go to the next point I wrote down here, because we completely just went.
Cut the topic.
Cut the topic. We're going. All right, Doctor. You know, it's been like 3 weeks, I think. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that, of the Doctor being reworked. I just want to hear you guys' opinion on how well does he fit into the current meta. If he needs improvement, which I personally think he still needs a bit of improvement, what would you change about him? Or if you think he's too strong and he should be nerfed.
Well, you can go.
I personally think he's in a really good spot right now. He the 2.5 second stun after the shock didn't seem like it did anything at first, but the more I play him, if you can time it just right on pallets that like aren't safe, obviously on gigantic pallet loops you can't really do anything with it, but on certain pallets it can get you pretty much free hits. And also the skill check synergy can be really, really good with like Overcharge and Huntress's Lullaby. So I think he's actually in an okay spot. He's not amazing, but he's not as terrible as he was.
Yeah, I agree. But like most doctors I face still haven't figured out how to play him, I think. Like they still run around, like they still chase you around, shock you to tier 3, like keep on shocking instead of like actually trying to get a hit after a shock. So it's like I don't know yet. Like I maybe like increase the timer a bit, right? Like it's the Doctor is supposed to stop the pallet loops. That was the intention when they first added him, even though he didn't do that at first. But like if you make it like 3 seconds without action or like 3.5, I don't know if that's much. But
I don't know.
I don't know if that's much.
No.
Honestly,
I think the only change he needs is right now when you charge up the shock therapy completely, there's still like half a second delay before they actually get shocked. I think that just needs to go.
Yeah,
well,
it's amazing.
But that can also be used in ways like you can use that to lay down traps and then swap and then go for a hit after they've been shocked.
Yeah, but that's just creative use of the power, I think.
I suppose. I think
it's like using the power in an efficient way.
Well, I mean, do you think that the Doctor should be able to have a really good chance of landing a hit if they shock someone while they're running a loop? And how would you accomplish that? Because currently, as it stands, if I'm running a pallet loop and you start shocking, I can recognize that and just run away from the loop, and you're stuck behind this huge object. I've just created so much distance from you. You know?
Well,
I think...
Sorry, I think that comes from Doctors playing it wrong. I think the point of Doctor is to chase them around a loop like you normally would as a killer, and then when you get to the point where they're like 2 or 3 seconds away from dropping the pallet, that's when you shock them. I think there's like most Doctors don't play Doctor right, and I think that's where people kind of get the wrong idea. I think he actually has a pretty decent skill cap right now because you actually have to time your shocks correctly while doing the loops to stop them from dropping the pallet. And if people start to master that, he's going to be really strong. But there's a lot of kind of bad Doctors right now who just shock all willy-nilly without even actually paying
Yeah, I
attention
feel
to
like
what
a
they're
lot of
doing.
doctors.
That's kind of why I want that small delay gone, because I try to play Doctor that way whenever I play him for a daily or something, but it's like you shock, then the thing goes out, they vault over, and then they get shocked, and that's like.
Yeah, but the problem is
That's
like
mistiming.
if you
I know
remove
that's
the delay.
it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, but if you remove the delay, right, like then you can't like play against him anymore, which is also fun. Like sometimes, like if I realize the doctor is not very good at hitting the shocks, you can kind of run at him, right, and touch the shock that way.
Being able to dodge
If that
shocks
delay
is
is
really
gone, you
cool.
just get punished and get hit in the face, right? So
I think here's my 2 cents. You guys are suggesting that you shock the survivor before they drop the pallet, right? That's kind of what I'm hearing. Is that what you're saying? Is you shock them to prevent them from dropping the pallet?
I think that's what.
Yeah, but while you're while you're doing the loops, like right when you're getting close enough that they're gonna have to drop the pallet while the pallet. Like think if you're chasing them with Wraith or something, and you're doing like the final loop where you're finally getting close enough that they're gonna have to drop the pallet. You shock them before that pallet drop. That way they can't drop it, and then you can chase them past it and get a hit.
But most of the time I think most of the time it still takes enough time for you to actually catch up to hit them that they can still drop down the pallet before the thing actually wears off.
Like
there's I think in order for you to be close enough to shock someone, you already have to be within lunge range. Yeah. So at that point, why wouldn't you just hit them?
I agree. I feel like I should have added on there that I think he needs a range bonus, honestly.
Exactly.
I usually I play him with range add-ons usually when I do it. Otherwise,
without add-ons, it's bad. It's like you have to have add-ons to use it efficiently in a chase.
Which is kind of sad, because I always try to use the illusion add-ons. You know, like the stuff that affects the madness thing, and like there's so many cool add-ons for him, but you can't use them because the default range of the shock therapy is just so garbage that you actually have to use one of the range add-ons.
Okay. I think that's
enough.
Yeah. Fuck the doc.
All right. A bunch of questions I want you guys. I want to discuss are if generators are completed too quickly right now, if chases take too long, and if survivor is too easy and killer too stressful. So let's start with the first one. Let's start. Are generators being done too quickly?
Okay, so
yes.
Generators, I don't think they're being done too quickly. I think the issue is not the gens being done too quickly. I think it depends on the playstyle. I think it's it's a problem about the balance overall. It really depends on if your team is good or if your team is bad. If you play Survivor Friends and you really try hard as for survivors, I still think the game is broken for Survivor. If you're not against the nurse. And then the issue becomes like, because if you're good on Survivor, I feel like against most killers you can buy enough time for like at least 3 people escaping, even if the killer is really good. Yeah, like if you try hard,
because you can just pellet loop them all day. I think
it's not. I don't think the pellet looping in it. Yeah, maybe it really depends on the killer you play against. I think that's why I like the Huntress so much. Like I think the Huntress actually like kind of count as pellet looping now. And it's more of a mind game. But I don't think you can I don't think you can say that in general that gens are being done too fast.
Well,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I don't think when I say gens are being done too fast, I don't think it's so much an issue of generators are too short. It takes too little time to finish a generator. I think generators should take less time to work. That's a crazy statement for sure. But I think it's because the killer doesn't have enough pressure to bring the survivors off of generators that they're being done too quickly. And I think the biggest contributor right now is borrowed time.
Oh yeah.
Before, if the killer was kind of proxy camping, you know, you'd need to organize your team. Oh, yeah. In like a Survivor Friends scenario, or even with randoms, you could say, "Come on, let's go save the dude. Do your 2 gesture." And you would run up, that's 2 people off generators going for a save. And even then, if you do make the save, everyone's going to be leaving injured. And if you don't make the save, the killer's got a lot more pressure now. Right now, as it stands, you only need 1 person to make that save. And then from that point on, it's just going to waste a lot of killer's time because he has to land 2 hits or 1 hit and then continue the chase until they bleed out.
Yeah, and if you just continue to chase, that's 40 seconds. That's half a generator.
That's yeah, and everyone's still working generators. So instead of organizing 2 survivors or 3 survivors off of generators to go make that unhook, you only need 1. And it will be successful unless they're standing directly in front of the hook.
To be fair... Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
I just gotta say, I kind of have a weird view on this that I feel like you guys are all gonna disagree with, but I actually think it's the opposite. I kind of don't mind borrowed time at all as a killer. I feel like if borrowed time didn't exist and people weren't so reckless with saves, and you put a survivor on a hook with that 1 minute hook state before they go into struggle, and you try to proxy camp or whatever, especially if it's a survivor with friends, they would probably finish the gens that they are on before they even try to do anything. And maybe they could even let them die and just get all the generators done. I feel like if every survivor player like let the person on the hook go until they were about to be in struggle state and did gens the entire time up to that, killer would be impossible. It would be impossible.
Oh yeah.
I love when survivors rush hooks with borrowed time. I love it because it lets me hit the guy who's getting the unhook. I put him into borrowed time state. I chase him down till he's down. The other guy has to go. It applies so much pressure. Like I get a free chase. I get a free down because I usually down them before their borrowed time procs anyway. Like you could just chase them and catch them. They throw a bunch of pallets anyway, even though they're fucked. So that you get a lot of pallets out of the map. I honestly think it applies so much. I love it as a killer personally. I am all, you could borrow time me all day as killer. I don't care at all. I think it just gives me more pressure, to be honest. I mean, everyone seems to think it's a problem. I honestly love it.
It's weird.
I don't know. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but at the same time, that the hook time, I also think that's an issue. It's just slowly as the game has gone on, they've made seemingly quality of life changes that have actually dicked over the killer incredibly hard. I think the first one was the recovery state change where downing survivor didn't really have any impact because they can recover so quickly and be tapped up so quickly. If you've got 2 survivors on the ground and you pick one up to hook him, the other guy's going to be up by the time you finish that hook. I don't think that's necessarily, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that's necessarily fair to the killer. He had to go on this long chase to down this person, and then they're already up by the time he manages to hook one.
Yeah, I think, like, I also, like, get the argument of applying pressure, but, like, just compare, like, using borrowed time on a save compared to not using it. It just buys, like, overall, it buys more time for survivors, even if they get downed.
I definitely like hook bombing, too, you know?
I mean...
Hook bombing is amazing.
See, I understand that though, but the thing is that with borrowed time, they become more reckless. They basically will get right up on it. Whereas without borrowed time, usually, unless you're playing like Tom when he's memeing, you know, and he'll go for 1v1s or whatever. But usually survivors aren't going to be reckless. They'll usually like finish the gens that they're doing because they don't want a 1-for-1, you know. But with borrowed time, like you'll throw a guy on a hook, and before you have a chance to walk away, they'll be there on hooking, you know. Then you go back at a free chase. That won't happen without borrowed time, you know. That happens because of borrowed time, which I'm cool with, you know.
I think that's an issue of the playstyle, though, right? Not the perk itself. I think a lot of people actually use it properly. I don't know.
People aren't willing to unhook because it's so unsafe to unhook right now. Like if you unhook without borrowed time, and the killer's proxy camping, that dude's gonna go back down. He can just hit him off the hook.
Yeah, or he'll completely ignore every other survivor in the game and go for the injured guy, and you can't help him to save your life, which I fucking hate, by the way.
It's awful, yeah. Which is why I think we need the directional or the movement after being unhooked, right? Yeah. You remember when you unhooked someone and they could start moving immediately after being unhooked, and then they had sprint burst, so they could start a chase. And then the guy that was unhooking was vulnerable, so it discouraged tunneling. And it gave the killer a lot of pressure. So when you could make saves like that, hook bombing was a thing. Even at just rank 1, if I was playing on Toronto and I hooked someone and I proxy camped, eventually people would be like, all right, get off these generators. This guy's starting to die. The hook's going pretty quick. We gotta fucking bomb this shit. And they would, you know, try to coordinate a rescue.
All right. So what was the next question?
I still wanted to say something about time. Okay. One of the biggest problems I have with board time, I think Tofu already knows this because I mentioned this in chat, is when I had a bad game and the gates are open, I killed one person, maybe had a really bad game, killed no one. I catch someone, I hook them, And then because I'm a scummy killer piece of shit, I go patrolling because I want that kill for my ego, to feed my ego. And then a survivor just runs up, stands in front of the hook person, and it's like a standoff because they keep faking unhooks. And then eventually they do a real unhook. I try to grab them off. The game thinks, nah man, you want to hit them, you don't want to grab them off. And then they get both away with borrowed time and I look like a fucking idiot.
I mean,
yeah, obviously this is just memeing, but
well, I get what you're saying, right? Like, faking on hooks right now isn't as good as it used to be. Takes longer, you know, longer to cancel, longer to move.
yeah.
I think that would be nice to see back again. Just all the interaction on the hook has been destroyed over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an overall problem right now with the killer cube added too, right? Like, it's like the executes are powered and you didn't kill anyone, or you only killed one person, and you know you're not gonna pip.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, sorry, I'll let you.
Yeah, it's just like you kind of like, it sucks to say, but like the only safe way to actually get the kill is face camping, right? I'm not saying face camping is fun, but it's like if you don't like at least patrol and they have more time, you're basically giving away the kill for free, right? But then you get blamed for being face camper.
That's actually wrong, though. Like, that's the wrong mentality that killers get. Like, you shouldn't protect you should apply more pressure to the map. That's what you should be doing, not camping.
Yeah, but if like the executes are powered, right? It's still.
Oh yeah. At the end, I
powered?
understand. Yeah. No, then
I'm talking about overall. Like, yeah, and that's like an issue with the new killer cube, which I think is not the like the. It's better than the old pip system, maybe. I don't know.
I don't think it's better. I think it's a million times worse. I hate it, to be honest.
I sometimes meet people who defend the killer cube and say it's amazing, and I'm still baffled that these people exist, because it's obviously not.
I like that it's harder. I like that it's harder to pip. Yeah, I think it needed to be harder because killer was a joke. Pipping up as killer was literally the easiest thing ever. Like, I think it did need to be harder, but this is not the way that they should have did it at all. They should have just increased the blood points or something.
For me,
I don't know exactly what, but
I think I'm one of the people that thinks that the killer cube was a good thing, but implemented at a bad time. Like, right now, with how frustrating killer is to play, with all the crap you have to deal with. You know, you talk about map pressure. Well, you can't really apply map pressure with all the second chance perks that exist. Decisive Strike is so much more time for survivors. You've got Unbreakable, which lets people pick themselves up off the ground for free. That guy that you had down that was going to go on a hook, that was going to force people to get up and save him. There's no pressure there anymore. I don't think you really can control the map with how small survivor hitboxes are and how many times they can loot pallets before they're forced to drop it. But yeah, I think if Dead by Daylight takes it the right direction with improving how the game plays out, I think the victory cube for killer was a good thing. But as it exists right now, it's not at all. You feel forced to camp because you want to rank up, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I also think it was a good idea to split blood points and like Pippin. I think they should have done that for Survivor ages ago. I think they want to do something like that, but it just got implemented the wrong way. Like, there could be other ways where you, like, I don't think kills should determine how well you did as killer. Like, blood points kind of do, but not really also. It really depends. See? I don't know how to go about it for killer. I had some ideas for Survivor. Like, that's the next thing coming up, right? Like, I think they want to change this thing for Survivor too. I hope it's going to be done right.
I mean, but what survivor goals would you implement? Doing generators, getting hook saves?
Oh yeah. I have a pretty, I don't know, spicy opinion. Like right now, like you get points for anything, right? Saboing hooks, which doesn't do anything. Like getting rid of totems that are not active, which you can say, well, maybe he has nowhere, but like in most of the games, when you get rid of the totems that are not active, there's always one or two totems left which have no-head on them. Like, it wastes too much time anyways.
Yeah, I don't like the no-head change at all.
Yeah, I think the only way you should pip as a survivor is actually like doing gens, but the more important part is, like, it feels frustrating when you get tunneled for 5 gens and then you die in the end. You get like 8k boldness, but you don't pip because you couldn't do anything else in the game. So I think surviving is not like really like surviving doesn't like really determine if you played well that game or not, right? You could have played like really unaltruistic, really bad, and still survive because you camped in like the corner and your team kind of carried you. So I think the only way you should actually pip is by doing gens, by getting chased. Like the more time you get chased, the higher like the chances to pip in, or like the higher the points you get for, like going towards the pip, and then like saving altruism. I think everything else is like not really like doesn't determine if you played good or bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation. Like for me right now, the ranking system. I don't see the problem in the ranking system. I see the problem in the rest of the game. If you made the rest of the game better, then the ranking system right now wouldn't be an issue. You know, you've got killers, and if they're killing too many people, then they're going to be ranked up and, you know, theoretically matched against better players. And then because you've got this basis for killers, like you've got the bad killers at rank 20 and the best killers at rank 1, or at least the ones that are able to rank up enough at rank 1, then that's going to dictate how good the survivors have to be to rank up. So, for example, earning a pip, earning 10,000 points as survivor is going to be easier against a rank 20 killer than against a rank 1 killer.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
That makes sense. So I think in that sense it kind of dictates itself. As for creative solutions to the ranking system right now, I don't know, one that just popped off the top of my head. What if like the closer you got to completing the rest of the generators, the team shared? So if you're contributing to your team by running the killer round and the rest of the team is popping generators, then you should be ranking up, right?
Yeah. But like
yeah.
The thing also is that I just remembered that the only reason the ranking system honestly exists is for matchmaking purposes and not actually to really show
exactly. Yeah,
why people,
I was just getting to that. I honestly would be totally okay with the ranking system being completely removed. I don't think it does anything. If you don't get any rewards, it resets for no reason. It's pointless. I really don't.
The resets are stupid.
And I honestly,
the only purpose like ranking system really has so you can feel good about yourself being rank 1.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I mean, everybody knows after you're rank 1 or 2 months in a row that it doesn't fucking matter anymore. Like most people try not to be rank 1 because matchmaking is terrible. I try to not be rank 1. Yeah, same. It's hard sometimes, but yeah, you would prefer not to. Like a lot of people try to derank just to get games because
like I play 10 games of like playing normally, and then I play 10 games where I don't kill anyone. When I down someone, I just leave them there and go chase someone else until all of them escape and I depip.
I feel like since it's so hard to find games right now, I don't think like if anybody like I hear people saying that they should make ranking more of a like you get ranked with people near your skill level, maybe with hours or like leveling like character wise, and like it's hard enough to find games right now. I'd rather not be like separated by other people and be forced into people with like the same amount of hours as me or whatever. And I feel like that would just make it like really hard to find games like just from then on.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, I think we're done with this topic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Huntress. How are we feeling about Huntress? Like, how does Huntress play? How does she play against? What did they do well about the Huntress? What did they do not so well about the Huntress?
I like Huntress. I mean, I think I'm glad it's a free killer as well. It's they've talked about like a ranged killer for quite a while, and I mean this is the ranged killer, and I feel like she was implemented like correctly. I just think they need to touch up on survivor hitboxes and item hitboxes around the maps, because you can get hit from around corners, or there'll be like an invisible wall above a box that you can't throw over. And they need to polish those things up, in my opinion, for sure.
No one? I mean, I can.
Oh, I'm just sorry. I was reading something.
Yeah, no. For Huntress, I think some things were done well. I think some things were done not so well. The things that were done not so well are like half of her add-ons are dog do. She exists on this kind of fine line of balance where base, you can play around her in a chase. sometimes, very rarely, you'll find yourself in a scenario where you'll feel like there's nothing you can do and you have to take a hit. So like if you're running from the Huntress and you're out in the field, you might just have to take a hit. But that kind of exists with the other killers, right? Except she can zone you into there better. But usually, you know, using all the line of sight blockers that normally exist to hide from the killer, you can use to block vision from the Huntress. You can put objects between you and the Huntress, and then she just can't throw hatchets at you. There is an issue that this creates, though, as with any slow speed killer, is they have poor map control. She can hold down small areas relatively well, but moving from one side of the map to the other is a goddamn pain with how slow she is. And then her add-ons, well, this fine line where you can play around her kind of no longer exists anymore. So the hatchets that speed up her movement speed, or the add-ons that speed up her movement speed when she's got a hatchet out, makes it really damn hard for you to put objects between you and the Huntress, because she's moving faster. And when you're putting objects between you and the Huntress, you're swerving from side to side, so she's closing distance by default. Stuff like, you know, you described a pallet mind game earlier, Metro. That mind game more or less doesn't exist with the faster wind-up time add-ons for the hatchet, because instead of having to predict what the survivor is going to do and then time it accordingly, you can almost throw hatchets reactionary.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think a lot of her add-ons have issues, and I really, really, really would like to see them addressed, especially everyone's favorite no-fun iridescent head.
I mean,
yeah, that just needs to get removed, to be honest.
I'm really guilty of running the flower babushka every game I play Huntress.
It's so good. It's so good.
And the
honestly,
the flower babushka?
That's the one that it's the strongest wind-up time one. It makes you throw them faster.
Oh, yeah.
It's so strong. But I think she's pretty alright, though. She's really good at catching people. Like, if you're in a chase with her, you could usually catch people pretty quickly, assuming you're a good Huntress and you can zone them or, you know, throw it over pallets. You know, the more you practice, you can catch people pretty quickly. But she's also, like, kind of like Flare said, she's super immobile and has no map control. So, you know, even though she's super good at catching, she doesn't have the mobility. So you usually just end up getting gens just get done too fast. And I usually feel like it's a good balance where when you are in a chase, you catch them pretty quickly, but then you can never quite catch them fast enough to, like, you know, not never, but, you know, it's definitely balanced. It's not too strong. They can definitely do the gens and get out before you can catch them all for sure.
I also quickly want to add, because I've never seen someone mention this, because I think so little killers rely on the whole breathing thing. The Huntress is the only killer who doesn't make a breathing noise in game because she hums. And I feel like as Huntress, I can catch survivors breathing near me a lot more than with other killers.
Well, she's also got that whole issue of her humming being directional, so at 40 meters you can tell pretty much exactly where she is based on sound alone.
Yes.
Yeah. If you pay attention to that, it's pretty easy to, like, avoid her, to be honest. It's like a really, like, it's actually a pretty big deal. Like, I rely on sound a lot, and, like you can easily tell where she's coming from if you pay attention.
Yeah, and with her having bad map control, if she can't, like, find a chase early, she gets fucked. Like,
yeah,
she gets,
Huntress is all about, like, chasing people and getting them down, I think.
Yeah. If everyone's hiding and you can't manage to find someone within, like, 2 gens, you're basically done. Unless you get lucky.
I mean, she is, like, I think she's up there with Hillbilly in terms of how bloody her basement parties get.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the
she
whole
can recover,
M2, M1.
like, yeah, exactly. She can recover, like, super quick. Even if you do have borrowed time, she can just throw a hatchet at you and then hit you and you're down. Like,
yeah, before you even reach the basement stairs.
Yeah, no, that's another thing. Is like, I would love to see. One of the biggest things that I had requested was, I think she should have some form of stun after throwing a hatchet.
Like the Hillbilly when he uses the chainsaw.
Like, well, after you use the chainsaw and you don't hit anything, you just swing. There's that period of time where you're slowed down. You still have full camera control, but you're slowed down. And I think something like that should be applied every time you throw the hatchet, so that way you can't just run at someone repeatedly throwing hatchets until you hit them. Or if you hit someone with a hatchet or throw a hatchet, you've got that period of time, that grace period, where survivors can run past, kind of like melee weapon cooldown after hitting someone. And then hopefully with that, she can be tweaked in a way that her movement speed is increased, so she has a little bit more map control, so it's not as much of an issue with not being able to find people early on, because that really sucks.
I feel like the whole gist about reducing Killer's movement speed just because. It should only stay on the nurse, because she's the one who actually would be completely broken. She was completely broken when she wasn't slower than
exactly, yeah.
like running survivors. I think Hack should be normal speed and Huntress should be normal speed.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So, anything else about Huntress?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about it.
Let's move on to the sad boy, Mr. Bing Bong, Wraith. Why is the Wraith garbage? What does the Wraith need to actually be up there with the other killers in terms of, you know, actually killing people?
I just feel like she needs, or not she. No. I feel like
assuming
Jake's so
man.
nerfed, he's castrated.
Yeah,
genders.
Hey, maybe he hasn't
feel
identified
like,
himself yet. Okay.
Exactly. I apologize, but I
It's
feel
been a
like
while since he peeked under the bandages.
yeah. So I feel like he needs like a some definite buff with his power, and maybe with uncloaking, like a permanent like slight windstorm to give him like a way to chase somebody. Because once you find a survivor, you go uncloaked and then you get power looped. You need something to like help chase, or at least like advantages for going cloaked, other than like, you know, just being cloaked and running around trying to find survivors.
I think the Wraith has like this, like, also like speaking of design, I think they were definitely trying to go for like a more, I don't know, like he's like this hunter, you know what I mean? He's like
The tracker?
yeah,
Track?
he doesn't I mean, he doesn't dab on the haters, but he's still supposed to be pretty savage. I think they should just give him, he should just be faster by default, I think. That's
So
what
the whole issue with the Wraith is, right, like he barely got any changes from when he came out in the first place. And it, like, you remember back in the day when people were complaining about the Wraith being OP?
Yeah.
Like the first, that was like, okay, so that was,
funny.
I think that's what the devs were going for, that it was like really hard to like track, so you never know when he would appear, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as people realized after like 2 weeks that he has like the slowest uncloak and you can hear him, like he's like so easy to get rid of, like.
yeah.
Well,
It's just
I vividly remember when the game came out, playing with like some bunch of IRL friends, and we were like, dude, Wraith is so broken. I cannot understand why he's a thing.
Yep.
And, like,
Well,
we
people
were-
also learn how to
we were
kite,
we
you
were
know?
like, man, Wraith is broken and Hillbilly's garbage.
You gotta use
okay.
Spine Shield, dude.
Yeah, man. You need
Fine,
spice.
sure.
That was kind of the thing, though, was nobody knew how to run at that time, so of course the killer with the best tracking would be the most
Yeah.
overpowered killer. 'cause
Exactly.
We didn't know
Even,
how to
like,
run.
Wraith isn't even the best at tracking anymore. Like Doctor.
Well, now.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree that that's the problem with Wraith, right? That the Wraith,
Yeah.
his whole ability helps him find people, but when he actually finds them, he sucks balls at catching them, right? Like that's his issue. Every other killer
Well-
like has abilities that at least help them catch slightly, you know, and he has barely any mobility as well. Like his ability just doesn't seem to do anything other than help him find people, and even that's like if they don't see him cloaked, because you can see him cloaked anyway. So you know.
Yeah, there you go. I think you touched on it right there. I love this topic, the Wraith, because it's really fun to talk about in terms of just game design. So the reason Wraith sucks right now isn't necessarily because his ability doesn't do anything in the chase, but it's just because his ability is goddamn useless. The time it takes to cloak up and uncloak completely negates any benefit that cloaking actually gives you. Aside from maybe Windstorm add-ons. But yeah, just stock, there's a few problems. One, when you cloak, you slow down. Why is that? Why are you punished for using your ability? It's so stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, uncloaking, you know, it kind of makes sense when you're slowed down when uncloaking, so you just don't surprise someone and fucking whack him out of nowhere, right? That kind of makes sense to an extent. But slowing down while cloaking, you're punished for using your ability. Stupid. Another thing is he doesn't really move that much faster while cloaked.
Yes.
You move faster at like Bloodlust 2 than you do when you're cloaked, which is so fucking goofy to me. It's so stupid. He's supposed to have ridiculous tracking, but cloaking makes it harder to see. All the fucking blocking at the sides of the screen, yeah, that's there. it makes it harder to hear because you're in the shadow realm and you got this fucking filter on all the noise. It's so obnoxious. So harder to see, harder to hear. It slows you down, and you're at a disadvantage when you find someone. So his cloak is innately useless at the start of the game.
Don't forget about the flashlight burn you get every time you
Even that.
No, honestly,
So
I think the... Oh, sorry.
No, you go. I have my...
So yeah, the only thing that is fun to play when you play the Wraith is the faster uncloak time, right? And then speed add-on, like the whatever it's called. Windstorm, yeah. And I feel like that should be implemented generally for his ability.
That should just be default.
Yeah, well, faster uncloak time and speed boost to catch up.
I get where you're coming from with that, but that doesn't fix the baseline issue of his cloak being punishing to use.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes
so
it better.
I think the best starting ground, if we're going to change the Wraith, is remove the slowdown when he cloaks. That's stupid. Make him really goddamn fast when he's cloaked, so he can actually track. Add tracking benefits to cloaking instead of downsides. So maybe instead of making everything so fucking hard to hear, you could make things maybe a little muffled for the whole cloaked immersion, but also make things louder, so it's easier to hear. Kind of like a bass, a Strider bass. So give some ability. Maybe he can see blood better. Give him some tracking benefits, so he's faster. He cloaks with no penalty, and then even that can help in the chase. If you're moving faster while cloaked, you could cloak mid chase, run ahead of someone, and then zone them to where they were running from. So you can kind of deny area.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I like that idea a lot.
I've never heard it put like that.
I get the whole wanting his ability to benefit in a chase, but if you make every killer's ability centered around hitting people off of pallets, you're kind of taking away from the variety of killers we have here. As mentioned, as Nightbird mentioned, Wraith is kind of the tracking killer. So I think that we should start off by making his ability not useless, and then in the future, there's other things that we could do with add-ons.
I mean,
yeah.
I just want to mention, because someone in Metro's chat just suggested the greatest buff idea. If Wraith just needs sunglasses and roller skates.
I'm down, dude. Let's take a trip to the
roller skates, dude.
Just easy on the haters. Just
no more flashlights.
I don't know. Surfing around, dude. I don't know if anyone plays Overwatch, dude. Like Lucio on the walls. I still want to.
He the shoes with the little rolls in. He does that around the corner while he uncloaks. He goes like, "How do you do, fellow kids?"
He fucking hits him.
Dude, maybe make an ultra red on that gives him a skateboard. He just skateboards over the pallets.
Fucking kickflip over windows.
Kickflip over a pallet and windows, yeah.
He just skateboards when he's cloaked. The growling's replaced by the skateboard
noise, yeah. That's horrible.
Oh. I don't understand why they gave Rave complete invisibility while he's standing. That's just
camping, dog.
Yeah.
I think he should have
complete.
It's a mind game. I think Wraith should actually be completely invisible all the time, and don't make noises either. No noises, complete invisibility.
If you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to do something about. You can't really do much with the uncloaking. So, you guys say you want him to have increased uncloak speed. If he's completely invisible, he's really fast, and he uncloaks really fast. That's gonna create some issues.
Then
you're gonna see him use the hag.
Yeah, but then don't use the uncloak timer, right? Don't make it faster to uncloak. I think that should be fine. If he's completely invisible, you can actually position yourself.
Right now he's kind of hard to see, but he's got some tracking problems. Before, can you remember when he was fucking setting off crows while cloaked?
Oh god.
So obnoxious. He's still got a few issues. So I don't know about complete invisibility, but making him harder to see wouldn't be too bad. The growl. Survivors being able to hear his growl is too much. It's really
especially
not
since
something
his growl
that's
is the
happy.
loudest one in the entire
game. Oh yeah, his walking animation is also really goofy too. So it's not.
Yeah, he's barefoot and he's just sounds like he has these fucking.
He flails his fucking arms around, man, like he's on fire. That makes him really easy to spot. And if you're walking through the cornfields, I don't think you should be disturbing foliage when you're in the Shadow Realm, man. You're not in the same dimension or whatever. So why are you setting off all these indicators that you're visible? So he's really easy to track for reasons other than being visible, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. That would be nice to see. I also really despise... People are talking about his bell noise and how it shouldn't be visible or audible across the map, but that's not the root of the issue. The root of the issue is there is a specific audio cue for entering and exiting cloak. So if he's in the corner of the map and he's ding-donging his bell, it doesn't matter. You don't listen for the bell. You listen for when he enters and exits
you
cloak.
For
that noise shouldn't exist.
Yeah,
the
whoosh.
Shouldn't exist, yeah.
That could create for some mind games too, right? Like you could trick people into thinking you've uncloaked by ringing your bell across the map, but if they can't hear the entering and exiting cloak, then maybe you can sneak up on them. I don't know.
But that's like you can still, and I can vouch for that because I actually do that when I play against a Wraith. Is you can count the cloaks because you know the first ding dong of the first game of the game. It's always an uncloak.
Oh well, but that's the thing is there's separate.
The mind games.
I could be wrong.
I
could be wrong. No, I could be wrong, but I believe there's different audio cues. Like the audio cue when he exits cloak and when he enters cloak, I believe those are two different sounds.
Oh yeah, no, they're
by
different.
The way,
they're definitely different.
I have to mention something because I just got information whispered to me. The devs already said that the Wraith will not have base built-in Windstone.
Thank fucking God.
Baby rage.
Damn.
I mean, well, you're talking about you want him invisible, but that can't really happen if he's got Windstone.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as long as they buff him. He has been shit for way too long. Like we all knew the Wraith was shit for like a year now, right?
Yeah.
Fix everything else, but don't like work on the Wraith. That brings me to another point, actually. Like overall fixes and balance changes. Like when was the last time we got like a perk balance, like a really big like perk balance patch?
Good killer perk.
Yeah, I think that's like the most important part about the game, to make the game like
Monitor and Abuse.
Yeah,
that was like one DLC ago, but before
you have
Huntress.
to admit that Monitor and Abuse is not incredible on the level that the Survivor perks have been.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm just talking about in general,
in terms of killer perks.
Like in general, like just balance changes on perks. There's so many perks that are useless and so many perks that are must-have now. Just change up the balance of perks, right?
Make more variety.
A lot of like, you don't even have to change them like overall, but like at least change numbers.
I really hope. Since we're talking about perks, I really hope. Just want to really quickly add this in. I really hope that the Beast of Prey perk, the one that removes your stain when you enter Bloodlust, I really hope they make that like that hard, where while you're in a chase, you could press E to just remove your stain for 20 seconds.
Just turn around, my dude.
Yeah.
Look the other way.
Yeah, it's not that good. I see no red light. I guess I'm gonna crouch now. The killer doesn't trace me anymore. There's still this loud, obnoxious music playing, but there's no red light. We should be fine here.
I mean, maybe it would be better to benefit lower ranks, because killers sometimes at that rank don't.
Oh, man,
What if the heartbeat disappeared instead of the red light? What if the heartbeat disappeared?
Yeah,
You still see the red light, but the heartbeat's
heartbeat.
gone, so suddenly you can't hear where he's coming from, and you gotta,
Yeah,
But
bring
like-
this figured ear back.
Perks that are directed towards new players are like already a bad idea, because when they
No. I disagree with that. Actually,
let me
I'll let you
finish.
finish. I'll let you finish.
No, I'll let you finish. Now, the whole thing is like, before they introduce perks, or like more perks, because we already got Unrelenting, that are targeted towards new players to learn the game, like there's a pretty big chance that you're never gonna see Unrelenting on your Blood Web before you have like enough hours in the game to be good at hitting people. Like they should just make the perks that are directed towards new players be automatically unlocked when you start the game.
It's like a kit.
Yeah.
The base toolkit.
I think the
Deja
perks-
vu, spine shield premonition.
Well,
And
see,
double.
here's the
Like,
thing:
when
is
you
those
start
perks.
when you start the game, they should be like, we know you're kinda garbage, so here, have this.
This is a really good point, and I'm glad you've raised it. Those perks that are directed more towards new players, the ones that help them out early on in the game, this could tie back into the rarity system, where the common perks are the perks that help out the newer players, and then the rare perks, you know, as you get later on in the blood web, your prestige, so you don't want to see fucking spine chill in your blood web. You don't want to see deja vu in your blood web.
I see
so
your
make
point.
those the common perks.
I see your point, but these devs were unable to make common perks. Like they were unable to balance around the ultra rare rarity, so they just removed it.
For the perks.
We know, like we that's why we're. This is the devs are incompetent right now. Podcast is what it is.
I mean, I even heard from someone that the devs hard coded every single perk, so it takes like at least a day to just change the numbers of one perk. Oh god.
Hey, don't blame the devs. I think they did a pretty good job so far.
They've done. They did some things alright.
Hard coding the perks is a mind game as well.
Yeah. You guys remember when the common, like towards the first few months of the game, the common perks were like the most rare perks. Like, you'd have to level up like 80 times to just get like starting to get common perks. It was hard.
Yeah, they literally
we could go back to that, dude. That's what I'm saying. Is you could go back to that, and then you would never see the common perks. You would only see them like when you just started your first blood.
Like when you didn't get Iron Grasp 1 in the first 10 bloodworms, you knew you were not going to see that perk until like the very end. Like when Iron Grasp was actually good.
Yeah, it took me. I didn't see Bond 2 until fucking Prestige 3, like level 100 on my Dwight or something, because I had all the teachables.
Oh god.
Anyways, I think perks that are less impactful are the way to go. I think there are like 3 types of perks in the game right now, where you've got the less impactful perks, you've got the niche situational kind of changes how you play your playstyle, but you know, sometimes very powerful perks, and then you've got the blatant, just fucking must-have, really goddamn strong perks. And I think the problem here is those really damn strong perks. Like borrowed time, people talk about borrowed time or exhaustion perks, like you gotta have that shit in your build, it's mandatory. And while you could play the game without them, you're kind of gimping yourself if you don't take them. And I think these perks are the problem with the game, where I can't equip any other perks because I need to have these perks in the game, or on my build. So I think, while I definitely, some of the weaker perks could use buffs, like open-handed right now is a fucking joke. Or not, no, oh god, no, that was,
I was about to say,
open-hand is pretty cool. Open hand is pretty cool. I was thinking the ace in the hole, is it? I don't know. He's got all these stupid card name perks. The one that gives you add-ons on your items. That one. That's pathetic. But I'm not saying that we shouldn't buff these perks to at least be more useful in their really small niche. I think we just need to nerf the shit out of these super powerful, almost mandatory feeling perks. So that way you can start to incorporate other perks into your builds.
I hate it when game developers nerf things because they're too strong instead of buffing things to give players a choice. But Dead by Daylight is the first game I've ever played, I think, where I actually want the developers to fucking nerf something.
Yeah, you know, it's so unique. You can't have it. You can't afford to have perks be this impactful in an asymmetrical game. You can't have the survivors running in fucking no problem, striding around with 12 fucking game-changing second chance perks when the killer only gets to equip 4 perks, 2 of which are already like mandatory.
I agree. I think like a bare bones version of Dead by Daylight would be like a completely different video game.
Yeah,
for sure.
I also think this is like coming up the asymmetrical style. If the game is already asymmetrical, why do both survivors and killers only like get the same amount of perks? Why don't killers get more perks? Why don't killers get to have 6 perks?
Yeah, exactly. 5 or 6 perks for killers. I don't see necessarily too much of a problem with that.
It's too hard to program, man. Like,
oh wait, stop, the programming joke. Wait. Someone said something in chat that I wanted to mention. Wait, what is it? Oh yeah, num_16. To be fair, you have to be so good to pull off anything resembling good coding.
Oh,
but that's true.
Too much flame, too much flame.
Yeah, I know. Like,
crank down the bunch
in general, like what like the last thing I want to say about perks is like we didn't have a patch that addressed perk balance in a long time. We got like 2 or 3 changes about very problematic perks.
That's on the way.
We never got like
on the way.
That's what we're getting though. Like that's
coming
up.
Hopefully,
you're still
it depends, right? If they had like
you're still right.
Change more than 3 perks.
All right. So I'm officially out of topics except for one. So we're gonna go into the more meme part here.
Free speech,
memes,
or whatever.
Memes? I thought this is serious DVD talk, man.
This is serious DVD talk.
That's why it's at the end. So okay, I have a roundtable question for everyone. We're gonna go through. Everyone's gonna cook up an answer for this one. If you could add any celebrity, right? We're not talking like Kanye West or anything.
God.
If you could add any celebrity into the game as either a killer or survivor, what would the perks / power be?
Dude, what the fuck is an celebrity? You're talking about like
can we skip this one? This is stupid. I get what you're trying to do. This is stupid.
Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna have an answer for this.
I'd add myself to the game. My perk would be ignore this fucking topic.
I wanna add something though, because I'm so sorry for bringing this up, because this topic has been run so into the ground. But if Jake Paul was a killer in this game,
no, dude, no. Turn this shit off. We've officially left respectable podcast territory.
left this one.
Oh, we need a better question, dude.
All right. We need a better roundtable question. Suggestions are open in Metro's chat and here.
But yeah, we can do a Q&A.
Oh yeah, that would be sick.
Let's do a Q&A, dude.
Metro's chat, check it out. Twitch.tv/Metro.
Yeah, no. Okay, like my whole chat has been spamming about anime.
Anything anime related will be
anime gets banned, boys.
Well, you're gonna upload this, right? So make sure you read the question before you.
Yes, I will.
Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for a question, is there anyone that wants to talk about anything? Perhaps the ranking system again. Perhaps there are things to be discussed.
I fucking hate spoilers.
Man, are you trying to bait me right now, players? Is that what you're doing?
I was giving you an opportunity. You said you want to talk about it more.
Dude, I have so much to say about it. I don't know. I feel like it's giving a really, really, really bad mindset to people who are newer to the game, who are resorting to cheap strategies to try to secure kills in the cheapest way possible, like camping and tunneling, as opposed to getting better at the game. And I feel like people need to worry more about getting good at finding people and also catching people to apply more pressure, as opposed to like how they can secure kills better. I feel like it's a major issue that a lot of newer players are having, and I really hate it. Whereas at least with the old system with blood points, it gave you incentive to, you know, leave and go get more blood points and go do other things and improve the game. You know, because when you're sitting there camping a hook or whatever, or even patrolling, you're not actually improving. You're literally just hanging out, you know? Like if you got out there and got into some more chases and stuff, you would get better to the point where like you can get better in chases, you know? I mean, I do agree there are some situations where if you have 4 insanely good survivors, you know, sometimes it's impossible to pip or whatever, as if pipping fucking matters anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like it's creating a really bad mindset, and it's also, I personally can't even play Survivor anymore because every single game, it's impossible to save the first guy that gets hooked, because even if you unhook him, he just gets tunneled down to death anyway. It just seems pointless. It turns into just repairing generators, and I just can't do it anymore.
It's the wombo combo, dude. You've got the bad camping scenario right now where the person being unhooked is defenseless without borrowed time, and you've got the rank system which encourages kills, so they just get tunneled. We could definitely use like a ranking system that encourages objectives. So, for example, one of the objectives towards... Oh, sure, what's up?
I don't want to like spiral down the rabbit hole even more now, because I've got 2 really good questions I want to discuss. Okay. First question is from, I don't know if there is an L or an I, so I'm going to assume it's an L. Lumix5 in Metro's chat. Would you like auto-aim deleted from the game since console was added, and auto-aim was added just because players played on controllers?
For auto-aim, sure, in my opinion. I feel like it should be more skill-based compared to if you're close enough and you hit left click, you're guaranteed to hit them. And especially on Nurse, like I feel like everyone can at least agree on Nurse that you could be looking the complete opposite direction, left click, you know, because you feel like he's behind you, and your character will turn around and like hit him somehow. I
feel like Nurse is the only killer that quote unquote, I'm putting quote unquote here, so please don't obliterate me right now. Okay. I think Nurse is the only killer that deserves to have auto aim, but only if Only if you actually like blink right on top of them, because in that case it would actually reward being good at blinks.
No, I think the complete opposite. I think the player should be good enough, like on the nurse, especially because she's so strong right now. If you remove auto aim, like the killer should be good enough to like hit the lunge by himself, like at least make her really hard to play. I think anything that like encourages more skill based, like aiming, etc., like anything that requires more skill is good for the game, because then there's actually like a difference between good and bad killers. Whereas right now there's really like, of course there's a difference, but like the difference gets smaller the more like auto aim you add, or like anything that helps you out in the game.
I see. Even Nurse is a touchy subject. How do we change her to be fair to play against?
Yeah, I shouldn't have touched
without making her completely useless. Because every other killer has pallets. Every other killer, as pallets get smashed, they ramp up in strength. Pallets don't mean anything to the Nurse, so she can't ramp up in strength as the game goes on. So how do you make it so that I can avoid her hits as a survivor without this whole the Nurse can't hit anyone that's good enough situation that the other killers
I think if the lunge range stays the same, right? If we keep the lunge range the same but remove the auto aim, or at least make it like way worse, that would actually mean that like the survivor could actually out-juke the Nurse, so it would not be a one-sided affair. Like right now, it's like if the Nurse hits the blink, you can't do anything. If she's on you, you're gonna get killed or gonna get hit. But if you actually remove the auto aim, you can actually dodge it, right? As a survivor, at least try to. No, 360 whatsoever.
Her lunge mechanically is different than every other killer's lunge in the game. You know how she hits people through pallets and shit right now?
Yeah, I mean that's a bug. I mean,
it's definitely a bug.
I don't even consider that like part of a toolkit. That's just stupid.
I guess that's just one of the tells of how her lunge is unique and why her auto aim feels so strong. So strong at times where even people will be like hitting walls and stuff. You know, the famous Nurse main Reddit quote, well, Nurse is fair because I just keep hitting objects with my auto aim. You know, if you're trying to swing on someone around a loop or something. I don't know. It's definitely unique in how it assists the player. One of the things it does is you tap M1 and then it goes for the full lunge. The other one is if you get close enough to the survivor at any point during her blink lunge, you're basically going to hit them. So if you get close enough for them to hit them before they drop the pallet, even after the pallet's been dropped, you're going to, you know, snipe them through the pallet.
Yeah.
It definitely assists, and there's too much. So I agree, you know, definitely... Back to auto aim, I guess, which is the original subject. I think, personally, I've had issues with auto aim myself. Sometimes I experience what the Nurses experience. If I hit someone like on the side of a vault, so like I'll try to hit someone as they're slow vaulting through a window, and auto aim will like turn my attack into the wall as opposed to hitting the survivor.
To be fair, I think Nurse is the only killer that really is affected by auto aim these days, though, right?
For the most part.
I feel like other killers don't even feel auto aim as much anymore. It's only really Nurse at this point.
That's not true at all. It's a dumbed down version of auto aim, but it's definitely there.
Yeah,
it has to do with smaller survivor hitboxes too.
I don't really notice it.
I notice it.
It's barely noticeable, but it's there. It's not as strong as Nurse. Like you can clearly notice Nurse, but
the only time I notice it when a survivor gets sacrificed and they get pulled up in the air, and you stand right where they were hooked, and you tap mouse 1, your camera gets jerked into the air.
Yeah, it does some good things, you know. Like you can bait people into hitting the person on the hook. That wouldn't really be possible without auto aim, or at least it wouldn't be nearly as possible. I think you should have more control over your lunge for sure, but for example, maybe auto aim shouldn't apply until the killer lets go of mouse 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't thought this through entirely, so I don't know if that's the best suggestion or what the best suggestion in the game would be to deal with the auto aim situation.
So does anyone else have anything to add to auto aim, or because I think this next topic is gonna be quite big.
Hit me with it.
All right, you're gonna love this one, Tofu, because you constantly ran about this shit on stream. Bloodlust and map balance.
Oh no! Oh god!
Is this the final topic? The doomsday topic?
I'm gonna I'm gonna not accept any more topics after this because we're already hitting the 1.5 hour mark in 6 minutes.
Gotcha.
Okay. Does anybody here that plays killer? Do you guys ever need Bloodlust 3 to catch somebody? Ever?
No.
Ever?
No.
Do you ever need it?
think I did a video, like a shitpost video once, where I intentionally got Bloodlust 3 on Rave to go super
I remember.
fast. That's the only time I think since then I've gotten Bloodlust 3.
Well, to actually be able to hit people, sometimes you just can't if you don't have Bloodlust. But Bloodlust 2 is usually enough. I think the way that Killer is most efficiently played, though, requires you avoiding Bloodlust by kicking pallets, because every pallet you break drops your Bloodlust level by 1. Anyways, go on.
Alright,
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
About the pallet kicking, I just wanted to add really quick, which is not really... I just want to add that I think it's kind of funny how they implemented Bloodlust to stop pallet looping in the first place, but then they remove 1 stack of Bloodlust when you kick a pallet. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
Yeah, it reinforces pallet looping. Anyways, Tofu?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, as far as what you said, Flare, I do agree. Like, I don't think Bloodlust is inherently a completely bad thing. I do think you can get really rough map setups where tiles are, you get like double window jungle gyms next to a shack, and Bloodlust 2 might be necessary, and it could help you out. But I don't think Bloodlust 3 is ever necessary, ever. And I feel like Bloodlust 3 usually is only used whenever there's an unskilled killer and he basically uses it as a crutch to try to catch a good survivor that he can't catch. And I feel like that's another thing in the game that is also like crippling people's honestly, it's like stopping the progression of new killers, like getting good, because people are starting to fall back on Bloodlust rather than like getting better at actually mind gaming and catching people. You don't need to mind game with Bloodlust 3. All you got to do is run at them, and then you'll eventually
Exactly. I've had it argued to me before by individuals that Bloodlust helps killers learn the game. But I feel it. If I told you who said this, you wouldn't believe it. But it's pretty obnoxious. It holds killers back because they're rewarded without learning the game, and so they have no reason to learn the game. Kind of like how when Infinites existed, you could learn how to run all over the map. You could learn all the tile setups, pallet timings and shit. But there's no reason to, so nobody did. Everyone ran to the window and they were safe.
Exactly, dude. Back when Infinites existed, was the same time that those really strong jungle gyms existed. Nobody
used them.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody used them. Exactly, until the Infinites were gone, and then everybody learned to use them. And that goes to show exactly. Like people progress whenever they aren't given the handicaps that they use to bail themselves out. And Bloodlust is exactly that.
If there's no reason, take the training wheels off,
If there's no reason to do anything else, then why learn to do anything else?
Exactly.
Bloodlust is enough. And they're, playing killer. There's a lot of... It's mostly old school killers that have already played the game and knew what it was like before Bloodlust that understand that it's probably more efficient to not be bloodlusting people up. But you don't get to that. You don't get to learn that because Bloodlust exists. I think just Bloodlust in general, like, I get why it was added, but I think overall it's like a downgrade on the game. It's created for so many bad things.
And as you referenced earlier, I mean, we shouldn't have Bloodlust if you just try to fix the base way how the game works and the priority of survivors staying on gens and killers getting looped, and if they just figure out a good way to make the killer more like I guess have more power, because survivors are just really comfortable on how they play. They're not really forced to make too many stressing decisions. And they can really do, they have multiple choices, and usually some of them are pretty good. So it's like, if they just figure out a way to make pallets, not necessarily have killers just do better in pallet loops, but just figure out a way to make killers have just not have to deal with the pallets as much in general. Rework how pallets work and how survivors are, survivors need to be intimidated by the killer.
Yes.
Which brings me to one point. I think I already told Tofu that I'd really like to see this in the game. About the map balance, because maps are undeniably a lot more survivor sided for killers.
I have some points I'd like to raise on this, but continue on.
I feel like it would be really cool if they added, not on all maps, but at least on some maps, sort of like entity doorways that only the killers can go through.
Mm.
At least
seems-
I
on
could see it
Laris.
existing.
At least
Yeah,
on Laris.
It
the
seems
Memorial Institute.
pretty hard. Like that'd be kind of hard to implement though, especially when it's like random based map. Like on maps with like huge like points of I don't know landmarks, right? That would be easy to do. Like maybe shack to cool tower, right? Or something like that. But on maps like what's the one map? It's an Auto Haven map that just has a shack in the middle. That's it.
Records Yard.
Records
No,
Yard.
Yeah.
Records Yard. No, Records Yard. It is Records.
It's Records
Yeah,
Yard.
yeah. That like wouldn't be a thing on that map, pretty much.
Yeah, that's
In my opinion.
not on all maps, just like some maps.
I don't think this is a solution to anything. I think it's a neat potential map design suggestion for new maps in the future. I think it's definitely a possibility that could be explored, but I don't think it fixes anything.
Yeah, I still think the major fix, like the perfect fix, not the one we're going to get because, why would we? But the perfect fix would probably be just to remove bloodlust and then actually rebalance the maps. Make like the super safe palettes slightly less safe, because as it is right now as a killer, you basically, the survivors run to the palettes that are incredibly safe. You basically just have to break them because there's nothing else you can do. You break them and then you wait until you chase them to somewhere that isn't incredibly safe, and then you take advantage of that and get a hit, and then they use that speed boost to run off, and then you rinse, repeat, If there was more spaces on the map that wasn't so safe, they don't have to make, like, every palette unsafe, you know what I mean? I don't even want that. I just...
Yeah.
I
want to add
up,
something to that.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
Like, overall, like, if we're talking about the maps, like, what I really think is, like, one of the major issues is that there's just too many palettes. Like, they removed a ton of them now, but I feel like palettes are easy to use for survivors if they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah,
like,
there you go. There you go.
Palette looping is like the first thing you learn as a survivor, and then like you kind of said, and everything else is like bonus on top, basically. But like, if you only use palettes, you can still on most maps you can still run the killer for a long time. So I feel like palettes overall might be the issue. Like my idea was just remove palettes overall and add more windows instead, because I feel like windows, good survivors can abuse them, but I feel like if there's not that many safe windows, but just more windows overall, I think it becomes more skill based overall because there's more mind games going on and like more movement that isn't safe, while palette loops are just like really linear. What do you feel like as killer mains? Do you think that would...
I like having windows and palettes, as a matter of fact, that are both like slightly safe but not incredibly safe. Like
T-walls.
Yeah, exactly. Like things like T-wall. T-wall is perfect. Like against a bad killer, you could completely outplay a bad killer.
Except
but against a good killer, aside from bloodlust.
So there you go.
We already talked about bloodlust.
But
it ties into this. Bloodlust and map design are like two in the. There's actually.
Yeah, that's why I had them both at the same time.
Okay, sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah, I just think if they could even add, honestly, I don't even necessarily agree that they should remove more palettes. Like, I would be fine with the amount of palettes and stuff that are in the game if those palettes were, slightly mind game. If you can make plays on those palettes, because literally, I feel like over half the palettes on the map usually you can't make plays on them. You just have to break them and move on. There's no way to possibly outsmart them or do anything. Because if the pallets were unsafe, then survivors wouldn't use them as a place to stall out and make you break them. They would throw the pallet and then keep running, which I think is okay. I feel like that would be an okay way to play.
I think we have also a point here in chat that I want to bring up from Ninjas. There's 16 pallets average in Shelter Woods. If you reduce them to 6, it makes exactly 0 difference in the game because the average number of pallets used is 5 to 6.
Well, no, because you won't be able to find those pallets.
Yeah, that's okay. That's way off. I have a really, it's gonna sound crazy, discussion point about map balance right now that I'd like to raise, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on kind of sort of after, of course, I get to. I think map design right now is perfect. That's freaky. That's a little freaky to hear, right? You're thinking, the hell's he talking about? With the way the game mechanics are set up right now. With Bloodlust, with the entity blocker, with how safe pallets are to drop, I can't see how you would design a map around that. How do you design a map around Bloodlust? if you create a window setup that's safe before bloodlust procs, it's super boring to play because you just look at the dude until your bloodlust goes up and then you get a hit and then you got to do it again. But if you create a setup that's, you know, not safe before bloodlust, or yeah, if you create a setup that's not safe before bloodlust, like T-walls, dude's just gonna fucking build up bloodlust and kick your ass anyways. Most setups in the game right now with pallets aren't even safe against Bloodlust 3. So how do you design a map around these mechanics? And I don't think you can, which is why I think the map design is probably as good as it can be right now. Before, you could argue before Bloodlust and Window Blocker, yeah, map design was pretty fucked up because you've got infinites, you've got safe pallets everywhere. Like not even just pallets that are safe to run once they've been dropped. Like, for example, I love this pallet. I love talking about it. The hallway pallet on Coal Tower or on Fractured Cowshed, where you've got like one tree on one side of the pallet, like just a tree, and then you've got a whole bunch of blockers on the other side, and it's like a straight line. And if you were to vault that pallet over and over and over again, and the killer was to chase you around it, he can't catch up to you. He can't really catch up to you. But if you were to try to loop that pallet, like run around the object and then drop it at the last second, he's just going to walk around the tree and hit your ass. So it's not safe to drop and loop, but it's safe to run once it's been dropped. So the killer's forced to kick it, but you don't have these ridiculous margins in which you can run around it before dropping it. I think it's the anti-pallet looping pallet. And guess what? That pallet is fucking useless with Bloodlust because you loop that shit one time and you're going to get hit because that little bit of movement speed is enough for the killer to catch up and hit your ass.
I used to love that pallet. I used to love
that pallet was the
shit,
pallet. Dude. That pallet was the shit. I don't think there's too many pallets because you can have pallets like that one, or you can have pallets like Haddonfield pallets that are completely useless, and you can make those characteristics of map design. And the only thing they'd really be useful for, I guess, maybe is drop it before the killer sees you and use it as an object to run around, or use it as like something a survivor can crawl to, and then have the pallet slam down when they're picked up. So they're still useless, but they're not useful in chases. So yeah, I think map design is fine. It's really sad seeing all these changes making their way into the game because it limits what we can do with map design, and it limits how well we can control how chases are played out.
I feel like most changes these days are just band-aid after band-aid.
Well, that's exactly what they were. Is Bloodlust? I quote Matt Wire on this. It took him like a day to do. It took him a day to implement Bloodlust into the game, and it fixed so many issues. It did cause a whole bunch more in terms of like how the game can be enjoyed, but it did fix. You can't argue that it fixed infinites because you can't really run one window infinitely anymore. There's combinations of windows that you can run, but there's like 1 or 2 of those in the game right now. So it went down from like 10 to 2. All right, that's fucking massive. And then for a lot of people, it also fixed the issue of not being able to hit people on pallets because you just speed up over time when you hit someone. So as killer, you kind of don't feel powerless in the short term, but in the long term, it doesn't matter because while you're building up Bloodlust, you can't kick pallets. And so it's really sad seeing that where care is needed, where you know, creative thinking, where all these changes that aren't so simple as just one fucking mechanic like Bloodlust are needed, aren't being implemented. They aren't. Shit like this isn't giving the current attention it needs to, and I think that's on the game designers end to make the game, to create these rules for the game so that the map designer can build around them. Because how the fuck are you supposed to build around these safe ass pallet drops, these fucking magnetic pallet drops? The ridiculous tiny survivor hitbox that lets him run around the pallet loop fucking 9 times before he has to drop it. Hello? Bloodlust? How are you supposed to design maps around this? What do you do? It's ridiculous.
It's a mind.
And I hope it gets addressed, man.
All right. On that note, we're past the 1.5 hour mark now. I don't want to like just cut off the podcast, but if we have any closing points, I think now would be the time to address those. Or is that like the ultimate closing point right there?
That's a good closing point.
Is that a good closing point?
Remove Bloodlust, fix maps.
I think we need to
make game good.
You can't outright remove Bloodlust because then infinites would be a problem again, right? What you need to do if you want to fix your game is you need to make perks less impactful on how the game plays out so you can create a better baseline. If you want to change map design, the first thing you do with map design is you remove infinites. You make the loop long enough, or you give the killer faster vault speed, or something to that effect so that maps are playable without bloodlust.
Yeah,
Not
or just
necessarily
add
enjoyable.
a pallet there instead of a fucking window.
Yeah, well, I see where you're coming from, but yeah, no, it has to be playable without bloodlust. If you remove these infinite locations that are problematic without bloodlust, then bloodlust doesn't need to exist anymore. So address those, then take away bloodlust, and then start designing maps, balancing maps around how it would play out without, because now bloodlust doesn't exist. It's not required. So in retrospect, design maps so they're playable without bloodlust, make perks less impactful, force interaction between killer and survivor, and just remove bloodlust. I don't know. That's what it comes down to, man.
Yep, that's perfect. I didn't want them to remove bloodlust before they changed maps. That would be a terrible idea. I agree. Exactly. They need to change the maps first. That way bloodlust isn't necessary anymore. But yeah, exactly what you just said would be perfect. That would make this game 1,000,000 times better.
All right.
Well,
there we go. That was the first episode of Flare Talks about DBD and 4 minutes.
Thanks for having me, man. This was fun as fuck.
For our guest today, OhTofu, you can check him out on twitch.tv /OhTofu. Is it a /? I'm not sure actually. Taco, I think you do mediocre montages on YouTube.
A moment of silence.
And if you want to watch Metro get completely annihilated in Overwatch competitive matches, go on twitch.tv /Metro.
Yeah, don't watch my DVD gameplay.
Alright, that was the first episode, and we're gonna hit stop record now.